This joint city council planning commission meeting to order. It is Wednesday, September 25th. Time is 4 p.m. I would hope that we'll probably have a few more coming in that are just a little bit late, but go ahead and do introductions, I guess. I'm Mayor Scholl, and we'll go around to Gary.
I'm Dan Carey, Chairman of the Planning Commission.
Council President.
Suburban Councilor.
Jennifer Shoemaker, Vice Chair of Planning Commission.
Charlie Castor, Planning Commission. David Rosengard, Planning Commission.
Hey. All right, so we've got a couple of discussions for topics, and first one is a discussion regarding the potential location of the new public safety facility, and I think I'll turn it over to Jacob Breitchen, who could probably help facilitate.
Yeah, I'll just prime it, and then I think David Lenz here will take over from there. John may say some words too, of course. So it wasn't really a formal memo. I made just a very crude map for geographic context, which is in your packet. And my experience with this property, it's been an interesting one over the years. It was one of the few properties in the city that still had horses on it for a long time. It's owned apartment residential. It was on the market off and on for a couple of years. We answered a number of questions on it. And it's owned apartment residential. And for a while, I thought it was going to be the next apartment complex that everybody loves. But then I found out the school district is buying it. Oh, okay. And then again, I get this email from Mackenzie asking questions about it as it relates to the police station. I was like, whoa, okay. So I included that email in here for those who just want some background. So that's the new location for discussion. I'll just note a couple things. It's zoned apartment residential, like I mentioned. It would need to be rezoned. But since the school purchased it, it would probably be rezoned public lands or something like that anyways. If we do rezone it, it's probably something we should do before 2027 because that's when we need to update our housing needs analysis. And right now, we're in the clear as far as our residential lands. So I don't think it would be a big deal there, but you know, a few years from now in the future, it could be. And we've had experience with an adjacent property adjacent to this one along Gable Road, which hasn't been developed, but we've answered a lot of questions on it. And that property owner had a wetland delineation done, not one that was approved by the state, but at least informally by wetland specialists, which shows wetlands on it. And those show wetlands abutting the adjacent property. And usually when a delineation does on a property, they don't continue it onto the adjacent one. And so you'll see just a straight line there. And so that was kind of an indicator of potential wetlands on this property. I think some preliminary work has been done on that, but I think I'll go ahead and turn it over to John or David, whoever wants to take it from there.
Thank you, Jacob.
So I'll take the next piece of this, if you don't mind. So we have a whole team of architects, engineers, project managers, homes representative ready to build a police station. We have a plan. We're looking for a place to put this. And mostly as designed right now, so it's a matter of the economics of it, saving some money. The civil design would have to change. Location after Castor Road was determined not to be a viable alternative. And so we went back to the Columbia Boulevard site. We also had some interest in the school district, the Gable Road site. So we're hoping to have a conversation today to get direction on what's viable site, what's what we want to do. We move forward on something. Times of the essence, and that we can talk about the pros and the cons of each site, and hopefully get the planning commission in on the front end of this decision-making process and end up where we best effort.
Yeah, so, and I just want to state that we did not know about, none of us knew about the school district site. They were closing on it the last time we had met and had this discussion. So we just learned of this maybe a month and a half ago that John started talking with the superintendent over there about this, so. Everybody knows where we're at as far as this property. Yes.
David Lentz is our owner's representative representing the city interest in the construction of this project and get out the discussion.
Because this wasn't part of the first 11 potential
Right,
sites.
so it wasn't part of the first 10 and the 26 meetings we had around the site. We had a lot of meetings about getting to the priority site, which was the Columbia Boulevard site and the Castor, we worked on that, then went back times.
So, yeah, and I know that,
New opportunity.
I know that you and we seen an opportunity as a council for potential, a huge cost savings and asked John to take David out, and walk the property, and that's why David's here to talk about the pros and cons that he sees, because he's managed projects like this before, so,
Well, and the potential to help the school district.
yes.
The pros column,
Yep,
yes.
yep. So David, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about both sites and what you,
Sure,
Yeah.
thank you. My name is Dave Lintz. I'm a professional project manager, owner's rep. I'm an architect. My career took a turn at the early stages of my career, and I became an owner's rep without knowing it in project management. So I've been doing it for 40 years, so I don't want to say that I don't look 40 years old. So I came to the table when the Castor Road site was really heating up and we were finalizing design. So I knew all about the, creation of the Castor Road site. And then when the Luba appeal stopped that, we began looking at 1771 Columbia Boulevard downtown, and this site came up when it came up because of the school's action. And both sites, I would say, are equally buildable. Without much constraint, really. There's money to pay to remove a sewer line on 1771. But, you've got to take the buildings out of there and you got to strip the asphalt off of it, so. We just don't know enough about these sites to really speak completely accurately, but we're really worried about whether there's really much trouble moving that sewer line at all. And we don't know exactly what we'll have to do when the rubber meets the road in terms of improvements around the 1771 site on the streets, but we have money for all of it in the budget that we're anticipating. We heard about this, and so the whole game shifted here to look at this site. It is a easily buildable site. I think its size, we're talking about the top 20%, 30%. Start with Alder. First round, Alder. Good.
You want the site plan?
No, let's not do that. But you can see the line coming from the left.
Just zoom in.
There you go, right there, right there. That's Alder Street, right?
Okay.
Down there, there you go.
Right.
So the site doesn't need more than that if you take your cursor straight to the right. We could put all that we had on Castor on that much land.
For our police station design.
Yes, and the police station as it's designed, we would just take those drawings and move them right over here and really do more parking, civil addition to it. So to address the wetland issue, we knew from what Jake had given us that there was that previous research on the other site. So John and I actually met with the person that did that research. Stacy Benjamin, she was the one that created that wetland delineation. It turns out that on this site, there's a little tiny place, probably as big as the tables they're sitting at. It's just inundated. It's just a depression that caused that to be noted as a wetland. And then on the other piece in the packet, it shows another piece down on the southern end of the, right in there. And then there's a ditch right there along Alder right there. So those, hold water, and they have anaerobic soil because there's so much water on them all the time. So, but they're not connected to waterways of the United States, which really throws them into the Army Corps of Engineer realm. They're not even noted on your city plans as a noted wetland. So for the little tiny bit that touches our site right there, and it doesn't go much further than right there anyway, right through the fences all, because we're standing on top of it. You can see brown leaves there today. We've asked Stacy for a proposal. She's given it to us. She wants to observe the site in October to really get an accurate idea. And there's a possibility of another, yeah, right down into that area, so even further down toward the trees, of an area that is depressed. So it holds water, and when it holds water, anaerobic soils begin. Okay? That means it begins to support wetland plants. But that's so small, the resolution of this for us would be a fee in lieu to the Department of State Lands. Now, DSL knows about this site because of that survey, but it's not a
Dan Curry signed it.
really nice survey.
I know about it. I didn't do the math.
Yeah, so, I mean, it is not an impediment, like you can hear the wetland, most of us shiver, but, this isn't really, I don't think anything big. Access to Gable, I think you have to take care about preserving access to the vacant land to the left and the driveway through that apartment complex to the right. So somewhere in the middle of that site would be where the probable access is. I'd be interested when you got that aerial, because the new Google Earth aerial has so many tree canopy. You can't really see the buildings, the house and so on through it.
April 2022.
Oh, from Google Earth?
No, this is, we did that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's why I was able to throw up that number.
We'll get it. We'll get it. So that's really helpful to see, because there's a row of trees that John and I both said, well, I'd sure love to save these trees. Well, you can see them in the slot of blue line right there.
Mhm.
We endeavor to save those trees, I would think. So we can put the building further to the right, have public access come through it. Between the building and the grove of tree houses virtually. And then put all the emergency vehicles on the bottom side of it, behind the building. And secure. Then Alder becomes an alternate access, emergency only access. We've got money in there for an asphalt overlay, but not curbs and gutters on both sides. So, you know, that budget could grow if, depending on what you come to conclusion about what is needed. But it's only emergency access. It's not an everyday thing for police if you elect to use this site. I personally feel that the downtown 1771 site is better because it's more central. It gives a better presence for police to downtown businesses. I mean, there's just a lot of reasons to think that's a better site. Police can get away when they're dispatched, they're out in the community anyway, so, you know, they're not coming and going from a central place, so that, you know, this would demand that, but it just feels like downtown would be the thing. Now, we think that it's probably only $500,000 or $600,000 difference. We put land cost in the budget. We have a new estimate. Right? We made the grade in our selection process for a contractor. So we've got an updated budget for both sites. Anything else you might think of?
Should you say that difference was again?
It's maybe $500,000 or $600,000, you know. Yeah, on what ends up being conditioned on either site, frankly. But
Is that the asking price and the demolition and the sewer and the
yes,
everything?
that we put land price in here. And we put all the new estimated,
Have we firmed up a land price on 1771?
You know, we offered them.
And that's what we're judging.
Yeah, it's off.
and then.
I'm guessing that one's more expensive than this one, right?
So what would be the pros about this? This one here would be a little bit cheaper, but also the adjacent property, the proposed property they're willing to sell us is actually further down than what is that? Is that correct? It comes down further than that Alder Street,
Yeah, the school district would like us to purchase
all the way down to,
a 7.5 acre strip.
all the way down to the last house there.
when you're out there,
for the
it
same price.
feels bigger, but.
So
So the
that,
city ends up.
that's what I'm looking at is we actually have room for other amenities out there too, and also for future growth.
And then it would still be cheaper than the other property.
And it would still be cheaper than the other property. Yeah, that's what's not being discussed here is actually that last house, there's a line drawn on the purchase, what they want to sell. Don, do we have?
I didn't know all of that, so.
So
you know,
you're-
Well,
Saying it
is
doesn't-
there a trade?
the entire
for the
site
parcel
then.
behind the rec center too?
So,
Yeah, Rick, can you point to
yeah,
where?
I'm gonna point to the site. So they want to sell, there's a line, I think, and it's.
Right there.
Oh, there, okay.
Actually, I think it's actually a parcel, Jacob,
Okay.
because they said they already had it surveyed. In just the conversation, that it wouldn't have to be resurveyed. It's already a parcel.
I'll bring my drawing up.
Sure.
I've got a drawing that I did some preliminary stuff, shows.
So from there all the way up is what they were talking about for that price.
And Rick, while you're up, show them the piece behind the,
There it is. That's it right there. That's what.
so I put this together as a very, very large bubble diagram of how things would go. So there's the site.
So when it,
That's actually, this is what we're buying too, this little jacket here.
did the school district purchase that?
Tucker Road
Too.
right
Yeah,
here.
it's part of the property.
They own all of that.
This
Oh,
whole
okay.
left side
Yeah,
here
there's a little star.
and this down.
Yeah, the entire property, the school district bought is about 7.5 acres and they want to do a 4.5, 3 acre split. 3 acres to the bottom is where their primary interest is to expand fields and parking. And things they want to do. That's their purpose for hiring the property. Remember,
And part of the property is that square that Jenny's pointing to right now too. That's it.
So the school district wants this in red?
Yes.
Yep, they want that in red, which is owned by us for the rec center,
Yes.
which was.
We bought so that the school district could have access to the fields like ambulances and stuff like that. So, I mean. right?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah, it was all
they're
part of
kinda
that.
Used to
more
it.
than
That's
more than
our-
likely, that would be a joint access for the community center and the school district. So it's kind of public. Yeah.
I'm just wondering if we need to actually sell that then. If we're just letting them use it anyways.
If they want to
That will be part of the land acquisition.
Develop it now?
If they want to develop it as a parking area or something like that, the new ball fields are going right against the fence right there.
Oh,
So the modification to my statement is that if you took a line straight off Alder, straight to the right. That's about all that's needed for the police station, so that would give an opportunity to the city to do something else with that parcel there.
Yeah, and what about to the left too, of that? You see where that kind of jags out?
Yeah.
I mean, there's a good sized building for whatever you wanted to put there, storage of some sort or.
Yeah.
And then we don't know what the needs are of the city right now.
The city needs, this police needs a place to store homeless product that they, come upon.
evident.
Well, that would be a nice
Evidence,
big
per se,
building.
But if a homeless camp is cleared, they have to pick it up and hold it for a while. One of the things on the Castor site, we were gonna put a Connex out in the back to hold it in, because it doesn't need to be. I mean, conditioned, but it needs to be held for a while. So, I mean, that's a lot of land for that much stuff, for sure.
And the red line is the road. Is that what kind of the
The red
proposed?
line, vertical line is one that we talked about, creating a lot line adjustment to create a usable saleable parcel. We'll circle that and I'll go to the left across the vacant field.
Oh, so
Keep
somebody,
going Cross, all cross, now stop and go straight down. So she's encircling a site there that would, from there over the red line and straight down. And over.
but we'd only own the yellow part.
That was, in theory, the same site, that would be like a double loaded housing site. With a street down the middle,
I see what you're doing. You're just seeing what is.
trying to use the land for a good purpose that. Could accrue to that site to the left.
To fill in some infill property.
So I have a question. In my official capacity, part of state land in 2020, Habitat for Humanity asked me to go out and look at that site to the west. And I would up this wetland determination report, actually sketch mapped where the wetlands were, but I couldn't put that with the reports. Looks like Stacy then came along and delineated it, and I remember that. What I noticed when I was there in 2020 was You go back,
But this one or the wetland delineation?
actually, the old previous one.
Okay.
I just want to say that in that western shut out place, it's pretty wet. The backfield back there, the south, wet, and that puddle went out there quite a ways. So did Stacy look at that property, this property?
I think it would
Stacy
really
looked-
show that.
Stacy looked at this property.
He's in the process. She wants to observe it in October.
Okay. I was there in January.
She did this, right? This, here you go.
Yeah,
That's
but
what you-
that's the same property that I looked at.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what, and she delineated those wet spots.
Yeah.
And you were asking about what would be sort of under the overhead.
Yeah, where the compass is there.
Right.
You know, in January of 2020, it looked, I didn't go over there because I've been trespassing, but it looked pretty wet to me, a lot of it, but up against, I mean, this water was coming from the under the property.
From there down to the.
You know, the school property, the property you're talking about buying.
Yeah.
The water was coming from there onto this property that I looked at.
Right. So she,
It's pretty flat, so it's, doesn't like it's flowing, but.
what, to the left, right there, that's what he was talking about.
Yeah.
That parcel. To the other, there you go.
Yeah.
That,
It looks suspicious, potential well in there. That's all I'm
so,
saying.
yeah, so that's why she wants to go out there when it's wet. I mean, we were out there on Friday, which was a very beautiful, nice day. And
It's been really dry.
and it was very dry, and there was no evidence of, I mean, it's not reeds, you know, or cattails or things like that in there. She said there was one plant that looks like wheat almost,
The reed canary grass.
reed canary grass.
Yeah.
That is an indicator, right?
When I was a manager as a consultant, I used to tell my staff that a good delineator could do it any time of the year, but sometimes it's tough.
Yeah,
Sometimes it's tough.
yeah, true.
You don't have to be there when the water's there, but sometimes it's tough. And it's a little tougher here with the rock in
Our
the.
proposal from her is for her to go out there and look in late October and size this up and take this evaluation.
It's still poor time because you're not gonna find wetland vegetation still alive. It's long dead.
Yeah.
Gone. So
Appreciate it.
Vegetation side would be tough.
I still don't think, I mean, that becomes more of a problem for that newly created parcel. To have to deal with more of that, I mean, just more fee and lieu, right? Hey,
So- just so you know, it's actually called payment in lieu. And, well, it used to be, there is a fee in lieu too, but, you're talking about payment in lieu. Payment in lieu is calculated by the zoning of the property, the whole acreage of the property, the real market value of the property. And then you plug all these things in there, and then the amount of wetland that you're getting impacted. And it spits out a number on the other end. For instance, JJ Excavating is not filling out wetlands because it's $500,000 for payment in lieu for his 2 acres he wants to build. So it's not, if it's really like commercial property, it would be really, it'd be expensive. Payment in lieu is not nothing.
What is it?
Yeah.
And, you know, I understood all that.
Yeah, okay.
Sorry for the misterm.
No, I figured you knew, but I just want to make sure that the else knew.
It's payment in lieu for sure.
Of I heard fee in lieu many times, thousands of times.
For everyone else, if you run into a very large wetland, oftentimes you have to go mitigate another site. 2 for 1, or if you have 1 acre, you have to go mitigate and put 2 in. And show where, if you could find a place to do it.
And I've been doing wetland work for over 30 years and it really originally was fee in lieu, so.
Thank you. Right, so relative to this usable portion of this site, that probably won't be over there, we don't think, but we'll see. We have to wait for a delineation.
So it sounds like in terms of the building itself, I think you've laid out well that this site is perfectly viable. You brought up sort of central positioning, which I think goes to not the building, but logistically how this works for operations and law enforcement. Do you have any idea what the police department's opinion is about that?
They have said repeatedly they just want a building.
I was gonna say, they have
Just
told
want
us now,
Yeah.
Yes.
anywhere, Just give us a new place.
Just wanted to confirm that was.
And this is not in a floodplain?
It's still in question.
Joke right before this meeting, and it was just a joke that, oh, it's in the 1,000-year floodplain. No, it's not, it's not.
That's
So what-
how rumors get started.
One thing that, from previous years back, planning commissions, we had, what's that street going north to south right there?
Cable or Bachelor Flat?
Right there, Furlock. So there was some houses along there that couldn't be connected to the sewer because they'd have to have pump stations and can't do septic tanks. It's a real problem area for sewage. And when I was talking to Habitat and Mandy for that site that I looked at, I asked them about that. They said, no, they're gonna have a problem because they could hook up to Gable Road. So doesn't have the sewer problems that Furlock.
Road is on the list to get a new sewer,
Yeah, but
sewer line.
at least it can flow there without a pump station.
That's right.
Yeah.
The sewer terminates kind of in this
Yeah.
area and there's no public sewer beyond Alder South. And so all these properties are on septic. And there's no way to extend that sewer south because of gravity. It's just, that's the end of the line.
Well, close there.
Yeah, we're in the vicinity of that issue, but it's not an issue.
But positive thing.
We're not trying to scare, just
So, on this work here though, on this, were these significant wetlands or were they just identified as a wet area? I'm just curious, because I know there's, I think, a little bit of a difference, right? The one parcel that the other.
So-
parcel.
Don't get too up on significant wetland. That's the term from the wetland inventory.
Okay.
yeah, I
Has to
would
do
be
with functions.
waiting-
Yeah.
I'd be saying way more if these were significant to the city.
They're not.
Yeah,
What that means is significant wetlands fall under the jurisdiction of the city's ordinances. And non-significant wetlands, even if they weren't inventoried, even if
Okay.
they were inventoried, don't fall under that
Alright.
jurisdiction.
These are not mapped in city maps for them.
Okay.
Doesn't mean they don't exist.
Yeah.
but
I hear
it means,
There's no buffer.
Yeah.
it means that
50-foot buffer, 75-foot.
yeah, there's no city imposed buffer.
That's what I was asking about.
And it means that if we get an application that impacts the wetlands, I don't have to say, we need all this stuff. All I have to say is, well, just show us, these are cool.
I find it kind of interesting that other parcels there that you could almost, and not that we would be the developers, but a developer could almost have fairly a chunk to do something with. Pay for some infrastructure there, too. What I'm hearing.
One of the questions I have, and maybe I'm just confused on my own here, but. The first picture we had saying, this property was going all the way back 7 acres or whatever. And then we got this other picture that has the orange going over to this
Yeah,
the property on the side. Is that included in the cost or is that gonna be something extra?
can you come back to that? I think the orange is the
Yeah.
parcel.
That is,
That is the parcel. That is the whole 7 acres.
Okay.
Zoom out, you get the whole.
All right,
The
that's
orange
what I
is, so,
wasn't-
so
Wasn't sure about.
left of the orange is the other one that we see on the map that Dan was saying, community action
Right.
team or Habitat for Humanity looked at.
But the cost for them, that gives us that whole what's encased in orange, even the jet out over. here.
Except for that lower one.
Yeah, and the school wants to keep that part.
Right.
Yeah. That's the reason they bought it was for the ball fields.
Does that cost include moving? Renting the property, Maureen?
Knows the budget?
Yeah.
Well, I can't imagine, I mean, that's a lot line adjustment, that's not a consolidation or a division. So creating that lot line, you move the jagged yellow over the bed, right? It would be a few $1,000s, it seems to me, in a submission to the surveyor.
Yeah, it's not a,
Survey.
it's a simple
A
application
simple
with us.
lot
and-
line adjustment to.
Drop in a bucket.
They said,
But, yeah, but it seems to me, I shouldn't throw this wrinkle in, but I gotta say it, that the land that's excess in the yellow area could
Yeah.
be something, again, that the school wouldn't want.
Are you talking about down here or up here?
That they want, for sure. That's what they bought it for.
Put ballparks there, right?
Expansion of the ballpark. If you expand out, you can see there's actually a dugout down here.
Well, and then there's First Street down there, so
Yeah.
they could potentially put a parking lot there and do that, if that's what they're thinking, depending on how big their ball fields are. They're already developing those ball fields out there. I went and looked yesterday.
Yeah.
So
But
that's already for their
Well,
plan.
I'm sorry, I just don't know if there, how much is consumed in that they would keep for ball fields. I mean, otherwise you get a site that's accessible off of all.
I'm not clear on what the benefit to the city is for doing that lot line.
Yeah, me neither.
What's the benefit to the city for doing
It's
that?
not, there's not a benefit to us. I mean, for that parcel. I know.
Benefit to the parcel
Yeah.
eventually, but what's the benefit? Why would you even do that?
To get some money back to sell it.
Well, let me say it this way, it's the little pooch out there isn't too usable to the police station itself. It's more usable to the adjacent parcel.
As that property owner,
That is the
part
school
of the
that,
transaction that they want to purchase that or?
This is not-
No, John,
not that, no, not that one. Right.
No, there's been interest in developing the property and it's zoned for apartment residential. So as a larger parcel, they can develop more.
Yeah, larger and more regular.
but no, I mean, no other benefit than you could potentially get some revenue back for selling it.
You might go sell off the wetland area.
Yeah, that's
Well,
right.
and depending on the delineation, it might be useless.
Right.
Anyway.
Purchase price is X minus a little,
Well, before you do the
Even if-
donation,
But my point was that lower section, and if that red line, we could put a building over there for storage or whatever city needs. We don't know what the city needs will be, or the police needs will be 30, 40 years out. That there's extra
it's
property
an
there.
operations outpost possibly.
With the
Right.
size of that parcel being more than what we need, we wouldn't even need to put anything.
We
near
could
that
put soccer
wetland.
field there. We could put a soccer field there for a while.
That wetland area, really, if we.
You know, also, for the longest time that had just horses and a big old steer named Willie that had horns.
About it. I like
Wow.
looking at it as a horse property,
Yeah.
but
Yep,
it's been on the market a while too.
Institutional knowledge.
yes, it is. I used to buck hay for Stub and Jerry.
Yeah, did you know about Willie?
Well, we can try to get some Willie related. meeting. The new construction. It
Wanna
seems
go-
to be like, we've got two viable sites in terms of the needs of the department and the community. And one gets us a chunk of extra land at basically the same cost.
And
Cheaper.
it helps the school
Cheaper.
district out,
Yes.
which is the only reason why.
That's being conservative.
Okay, let's
Yeah.
talk about it some more, because
Exactly.
Any issues when a big train comes through and blocks? I guess you could go down to Millard and get to the other side of the highway.
Yep, you got Millard and then you got, yeah, that's always with overpass, underpass.
Somewhere.
Yeah, either side or.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep,
You still have the street network to be able to get to other crossings.
We're on Gable Road, close to the apartments.
Gable and Gable, you're also close to Columbia if you need to go that route.
Social media will run that.
We just set up the police station in the bottom floor of all the apartments.
The community room.
Okay, I used to do community court in Bud Clark Commons in Portland. It works. Good time.
well, in 20 years, we're not gonna really care about how much chunk we got. It's location of the police station, so. Is this the right location? Is it the best location? That's, in the end, that's the important thing.
I think as far as our UGB would be concerned, yes, I think we're gonna be going towards Caboose. Columbia City, we're already tapped into. I think 30 years out, as our UGB grows, that is a pretty decent location. And I see a lot of neighborhoods happening. Personally, me out towards Bachelor Flat, the fairgrounds area. That definitely coming on board as future growth.
I like the idea of it being really close to the high school too, personally, having a high schooler.
In terms of future. Multiple decades out, it just seems to be like having more space. Whether it's
Yeah,
more space for police use or more space for other city use is useful.
That's good.
And one of the difficulties, I think, is if we go with the Columbia site. Even if, 30 years from now, we wanted to expand, we can't because there's nowhere to go.
I just think it's unfortunate for Holton, because I was seeing it as really great for
Yeah.
Holton to have the police station.
Yeah,
there.
I really like the idea of the
I like the Holton district too.
lot. other things to do, but.
the police station,
In the station, when they have to respond through a 25-mile-an-hour school zone to the worst intersection on Highway 30. It's getting worse and it will be getting
Yeah, I think, I mean, for me, part of the difficulty there is. You put them on this side of Highway 30, we could have the same problem with them having to respond north, right?
And you're interlocked with one ways.
Yeah. So I feel like until we get a better solution for crossing the highway in general. It's always gonna be tough for police to get to the other side, regardless of which side.
But regardless which side.
Yeah.
I know, and that's been brought up before, though, that we have lights, we have ways of getting across the highway.
It's true,
And-
they do have that authority.
And I tend to get stuck in this idea too, that the police are gonna be here and they've gotta go out different places, but that's generally not the case. They're already out in the community. They're not,
Yeah.
they're
They're
not,
not waiting.
they're not all centralized here waiting to go somewhere, so.
And when the city grows and you have the bigger issue, you put a satellite station on the other side.
Exactly, yeah.
Should go around by Gable, of course, the school zone, but. At least go to a different intersection.
Columbia is just.
Columbia, man, that's what I meant, Columbia, that's what I meant, Columbia.
Yeah, Columbia, it's just, yeah, that's what he changed.
Yeah, I meant Columbia, not, I gave it.
Columbia, you go straight downtown, right to the, just right.
Right there, yep.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I wasn't thinking about that when I created the boundary of the map.
And you know, as you said, it's certainly true that if it was necessary, at some point, you could just stick a precinct on office.
Is that?
Yeah, you.
Mhm.
Wherever.
You see Elephant Head driveway?
Or in fairness, do it the other way around.
They just make a smaller police station in both places now.
And I think, I'm just speaking out loudly, the other side, I know I had no further action on it from PGE, but would there be any sediment issues when we go to start clearing that property on 1771? David, I mean, I heard you say 500 to 600 difference. And I mean, that is just a horse pasture, that's bare dirt with brand new curbs out front. I'm questioning how that's. The price is not that much different. I think there's a $250 price range difference. Is that correct? Don? 250,000? Or are we still talking the same set? A little bit, a lot more than that. And this one is,
So the price on Columbia View.
yes,
Price.
is a $500,000. Is a $500,000, not including the tear down of the building
Which way?
and the asphalt and the sewer.
And that's just land cost and
Yes.
David's
Is
done
it
a lot of work and
a little or one more expensive?
That's where I want to make sure we're all clear.
The Columbia Boulevard, he's talking about the Columbia.
It's the more expensive.
Yes.
You said a difference, but I didn't know which one was which.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just for the land acquisition. And then you have the building to tear down, the sewer to remove and the asphalt to remove and the no further action that. What, I don't know what that entails. Can we just,
House here too, right?
on both sides.
yeah, but can we just house that dirt anywhere? From 1771, that's a question, because I know it did have DEQ has no further action. This one doesn't.
This site has, all I have on this site as far as environmental is what the school district obtained, which is pretty limited. It's not, they did an investigation, looked for oil tanks and things.
Has there ever been a city dump there?
We
There's a lot of city dumps in St. Helens.
never had, we did not own any dump.
I'm just
I'm
making
making
sure.
I'm
because
making
Private
it
dump,
very
the city
clear-
used.
paper That's like.
I'm making it-
"Oh, City dump. I'm like,
Making it very clear the city has never owned a dump in the city of St. Helens,
Yeah.
ever. And so that was my question there, is it, this is just the land acquisition price.
It is the land, but also there's factors about demolition and it's Columbia Boulevard's a smaller site too. There's not much developable area. So it's more intense. This is a larger site that has more acreage and expansion, which is positive thing.
In terms of cost, outside the cost of the project and the site work for it. This site has alder paving, 24-foot wide section, no curbs, no gutters. $170,000 in the budget. 1771 has $500,000 worth of cost. In what could happen on the 4 streets around? Offsite, really their offsite costs,
Yeah, 'cause it's a
and it's a
square.
higher land price. Okay. But it's still all in, only about $500,000 more than Gable.
Happens to equal the cost difference in the land.
Yeah. there you go.
Is there any difference? And it seems like if police needed to store anything or have their vehicles, they could do everything on site here. Columbia, would they be able to have everything on site or would they have to?
Columbia is a smaller site. The whole site's just an acre. This site does have more. 4.5 acres versus 1 acre, so it's quite a bit different.
Is that 1 acre adequate to store the needs of the police department?
Seems to meet the needs for public parking and storage. Yeah, you're not gonna expand.
I would,
Expansions or nothing.
I would say barely because, I mean, we're almost on an acre. I think now with the, we, you know, we've given them fair building for executive office. We're in a portable. We also have the garage with the original police station and then the portable. I would say they're right at an acre right now between all 3 of them. And it's still not enough. So. That being said,
We're talking about the same building, same design. Lots, so to the internal buildings, we're really talking about the external operations outside.
sure, but what could happen on a site like this is if they ever outgrew an office space and needed more office space, they could build another building potentially out back for
Training.
chief
space
or
something.
lieutenant, like what's going on now.
You could prepare that little pouch sticking.
Yeah, exactly.
Use it modular like it's.
Yes, you see what I'm saying? Cause we have them spread out in 3 different well, not 3 different, 2 different locations right now, but 3 different buildings. Okay.
I mean, it's what you said, there's more flexibility for future growth here in a 30-year view of this thing than downtown.
You don't necessarily want to address this, but if you had to look at pros and cons, what are the cons to this site that you're not thinking of? Is there?
There's gotta be something, right?
Well, you've spoken, you're crossing the highway, you're on the, feels like, I mean, coming into town from Portland, it's on the, let me get this correct, southern end of town versus, cross the highway and you're in the central part of town today. I think the mass, I was looking at your,
As, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but as growth is happening, because Millard Road never had a stoplight. Bennett Road never got the attention of ODOT until because of our growth and the traffic studies. That is the directions. Our Scappoose and St. Helens will meet UGBs in Warren somewhere eventually.
Yeah, I think it's worth,
so that's a benefit.
Yeah.
That side is, then that's a pro.
Jacob, you're the planner and you really could do best on this.
it's worth looking at this map, just
Yeah.
for the purpose of this conversation. So the yellow line is city limits, at least is what it was in 2022. It's changed slightly. And then the purple line is the UGB, and we have a huge UGB. We were blessed with a huge UGB. So the Columbia Boulevard site is here. So if you ignore the UGB line, it's pretty centered within this the city limit. Now, if we're thinking about how the city will expand into the urban growth boundary, and then we go to
Right there with Bob.
that site here, it's central-ish to the full urban growth area. And so, that's one way to think about the
Well,
two
that's
sites.
exactly what Rick is saying. I mean,
Yeah.
you're positioning a building for a future 30 years and you're considering the growth of the city. And that's a pro.
Yeah, there is, and just looking at this, there is a ton of properties out here on the Bachelor Flat, Ross Road area, Maple Street, that we see as R7 even designs are a lot of housing there, a lot. And we have the Millard Road property that we are selling. That is gonna be a development, so. I try to, you know, with Jacob, probably along the lines of trying to look 50 years out and know that, you know, we've talked about autonomous cars too. That came up 5 years ago, you know. To flying cars even,
If you're,
you know,
housing,
seriously.
what was this, you stated was the meeting began that the housing price here is equivalent for apartments as Portland. That shows the demand out here is pretty high. And so as soon as people start developing into that urban growth boundary, you're gonna move south.
And again, I'm not hugely concerned about which side of the highway you put it on, because if we've got, take either option, if you've got it here or here, you could stick a substation on either side and compensate. Police can do that if they decide they need to. And just have, you know, a sergeant and a few patrol officers stationed on the other side of the highway.
When I came out today, I asked John, I said, what does Brian say? Chief Greenway, and he, at this point is, let's just build it. Because, I mean, if he had a really, really important thing to say, he'd say it. The important thing is, let's go.
I think so. One. One potential wild card here. I think the zone change will be easy. As long as we don't wait too long, because of the housing needs analysis thing. Because it's in a residential neighborhood, you know, there's always the public hearing and, you know, what kind of testimony is going to come out of the woodwork. The Columbia Boulevard one being on its own block and where it's at has a much lower probability of that freak out testimony. Now, you could early on in the zone change and the high school, the school district probably want to change the zoning anyways to meet their needs. You know, usually in the zone change, you don't always say what it is, but we just say, yeah, we're looking at a police station, we need to change the zone. And that's an opportunity to test the waters. Is there any freak out? Then, and it doesn't guarantee there won't be for the public hearing for the land use development entitlements, but it certainly gives you a test case.
I can imagine we'll get a lot of bad feedback about changing the zoning to build a police station, knowing that the zoning is for apartment buildings right now.
Yeah, and I
think people are probably gonna be happy about that.
and in fact, I'm glad you said that, because in my mind, I was joking, the staff report, it won't be apartments passed,
Yeah.
you know.
Seriously.
So I think that will, yeah, I thank you for mentioning that. Yeah, that messaging.
Well, you're right. You never know how it's gonna.
Yeah.
Probably a year or so ago, I was throwing around the idea of using the community center space for the police station. And somebody brought up the concern that people aren't probably gonna like the police station in their neighborhood, and police chief said generally, people love having a police station in their neighborhood. Like, aren't you gonna feel safer if the police are right next door? And right now, we live fairly close to the current police station, and I feel safer knowing that the police are right there close, so I don't see it being a big issue or a big outcry that there's gonna be a police station in my neighborhood. I don't see that being a major concern.
Yeah, it's not a jail, it's not even a courthouse. It's a building full of cops, it'll be all right.
And I don't think it's like we're putting it in the middle of nowhere. Again, it's right next to the high school, it's right next to the community center. It's not like this is way out of town.
I pose that same scenario to the fire department when we build across the street.
Yeah.
Said, well, we're right next door, so it'd be so easy. Says, we probably won't be here. So, same
Fair
thing.
enough.
I don't think that's.
Okay, well, I think the question is, as far as, because this just came to the city council, like I said, as an idea, and I know the school district is meeting on it too. Is this something we want to direct John to move forward with? That's the question.
That's my support.
And I would just remind, we're not supposed to make formal
No,
decisions
it's
here.
direction.
Yeah,
It's
direction for future, yeah.
Yes, yep, that's why I said that word direction.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm with David's 40-year experience on the Columbia Boulevard site. It's that it's more ideal in many respects. And he can make this work. He can do anything, so. But
Well, when you, it just feels like a police station, but you think about 30 years in the growth of the south. And you've got more land than you need here. You could put modulars on there when the time needs and overgrow the building. So I'm waffling here a little bit with my thought. That this has got some merit to it I just don't like to see you have to buy all that extra land, but you can do something with it later.
That's, yeah. I mean, the price is no different.
No.
It's actually cheaper.
And
It's
extra
actually
taxes,
cheaper and it benefits the school district wanting to move that chunk and do their building. So I think for me, I really like this site because of the extra property that we don't have to do anything with. Jennifer said, the little line that was drawn there, but we have potential to sell that little tiny chunk, which,
If it's not a wetland.
yeah, yes.
Sell it. Sell it.
Somebody wants to build a park.
So that's just where my direction is, for that.
Speaking of direction.
Yeah.
We've got surveyors and geotechnical and wetlands people. Look, just waiting to hear from us because it is germane to know the geotechnical issues here, but I don't think there are any, and I don't think there are any downtown. We need to do a study, to be sure. And it guides the direction of the architecture, seismic and such. Survey, we need to know that, make sure that everything fits and how we're gonna, again, the land's big enough to do it.
And if it's less than 50 cubic yards of fill in the wetlands, you don't have permit. You don't need better mitigation either. So,
Oh, really?
that's right.
Okay.
So my thoughts are just. You see it happen so often with the schools here where we build a brand new school and then the next year we're putting in portables because it's too small. And I'd hate to. Put a police station in a city block and in 30 years, we're looking for another new police station because there's no room to expand and no room to grow.
I personally just wanted to chime in and say that I was like, the minute we heard about it, I was like, come on, you gotta be kidding me. Like, I just want to get this police station built. Like, I want to stop changing direction. But after hearing everybody's input today, I mean, I feel like this is the direction that we need to go. It just makes sense. So I appreciate everything everybody said.
Chief did talk about future expansion. Don't let this happen again 50 years from now.
Let's go the other way. What's wrong with the site? I can't name it.
Yeah, it's got the double access already there. It needs just some asphalt. It's, I don't know that there's anything.
It's not there anymore.
Yeah. Willie the steer. Yeah.
I think there could be some little cons that we've already mentioned throughout this conversation, but from my personal view, I don't see any huge roadblocks to the cons. So every project is gonna have some cons. It's about which one weighs out better.
On downtown is you can't pin the guy down for sure.
yeah, we can say yes to a price.
Very expensive price.
Okay, well, we've got a scenario though, but I don't, we did that in the executive session, didn't we? Talk about it? About the options we can do.
We talked about.
So I can't discuss that openly, but there are things to make that deal work, possibly. By acquiring that under different avenues.
But we won't get that extra land, Russ.
What
No
are we
matter
gonna
what,
do
the
with it?
property will only be so big.
What are we gonna do with this extra land? He's talking about putting.
We'll let the people that are in our places in 30 years decide that. From a business standpoint, it makes,
Well, if the high school grows and needs that access over to there and make it a complete set.
they'll buy it back from us.
Of your building on
The building
it.
will
High
be on
school
the,
bought it for a reason. Now they want to dump part of it.
well, they need to finish their projects. They don't need all that property. I'm just saying, you can't fix the size of that lot, no matter how much. Right?
I think the question of what are the cons inside, I think. If you just look at this moment in time, the cons are. It's not as centralized to this moment in time's. Dense populations in St. Helens. And as has been mentioned, there might be some neighbor trauma. But I think that if we zoom out to a multi-decade view, the population issue probably flips the other way. If not dissipates.
That's the essence of the planning.
Yeah, so I get nervous when I find it out, when I'm faced with a decision where I'm like, there are no cons, that must mean I'm missing something. But it does seem like the cons here are pretty minimal.
Just, you know, it sounds like wetlands can be looked at and it doesn't sound like there's a whole lot there. I mean, I think, yeah. We don't know, but you kind of have some expertise in this area and that's why I was trying to just,
Haven't been on that property.
yeah, just trying to ask, at least they're not significant, right? So that's a plus.
That's
Yes, there's no,
off my sensors.
yes,
So the
that would be one of the cons I was trying to bring up.
Alexander Way, those are all single family and attached housing. They're not apartments. They're.
Yes,
It's all.
I think there might be some duplexes in
Yeah,
there,
there are.
but no family.
We haven't said a lot.
Is it like-
Yeah, there's
We haven't said a lot about the pros and cons of the other side, and I think generally the central location is the big plus.
It's a nice tie-in with a, a business district and identifiable subsection.
Something in the Holton district that
can see
is.
that.
Right, to me, it's not just being central, it's also,
Community's finally gonna say, oh, finally something good's happening in Holton.
It's an acre.
Yeah.
Yeah, just, yeah.
If you look at the map and there's a population right there for now and for 30 years you're talking about, it'll still be there. You're pushing out another direction. Maybe something else needs to be done. I don't even think here that project 30 years. We should pick our best site for today and for the people that we want to serve.
Yeah, and that's why I picked this one.
We could also take out of that, and so the children could walk the street rather than getting us.
So this benefits a lot of the school district also being between two different schools, having policing there. Makes our students feel a little bit safer. They're right next to the high school. If anything were, God forbid, anything were to happen, the police are right there. They'll probably be out patrolling, but if they are at the station, they're literally less than a minute away. They could actually storm out the back and probably run to the back of the building and be there in a minute. If they chose to. I think there's a lot of different, in looking at our community and the way direction it's going, we cannot go towards Columbia City. We cannot. And we do have to look at 30 years out. Shame on us if we don't.
I know we were talking in planning commission about the issues of the floodplain of the site down to the south. The police said we're just not always at the office, we're out and about. So the floods, we're not even there. So the location of the building may not be quite as important as we try to make it. It's like, this is the office, it should be central.
I heard that.
Sticks substations. If they really want a physical presence, that's what precincts are for.
So then-
Another piece of it to think about is the location in the Holton district currently has tenants in it.
What?
And those has tenants in it.
businesses, 3 businesses.
Tenants.
tenants and that are very happy with that location. So there may be some issues that we see there from them. And it's not really a blight building in that area because has businesses in there. It's not a, an empty spot on the street there. So that's just something else to think about as well, that
Yeah, that's a good point. There is basically 3, because there's storage, there's the food cart builders, and then RJ Shields Flooring Company. So there's actually 3 up there. I'm grabbing cookies, sorry. I seen him grabbing those.
That was on.
The power of suggestion.
dinner time.
I love Amos cookies.
I think what Jennifer said, though, about the whole vacant station in the middle of the business looks right. Police station out in the middle of the residential area, kind of looks odd. As far as look at the city,
Yeah, it's that prominence question that's been part of the equation.
yeah.
Okay, well, I think the overall census is moving forward with this site and directing John to go ahead with some wetland, look at the wetlands late October.
Yeah, we'll do some. Move 1771 out of the front runner position and property into this position and do due diligence.
How long do you have to make a decision on this property?
There's no formal agreements yet at this point. School board's talking about it.
They'll wait for us.
And we didn't want, so we learned about it, I'm like, we were planning commission, because we don't want another Old Portland Road. Let's just get it out in the open. They're talking about it in their executive session today. We're talking about it openly because
Well, and I appreciate your guys' insight too,
Yep.
personally,
Yep.
because we don't know everything. You guys deal with properties all the time. So I always appreciate what you guys have to say.
but I definitely would,
Sure, we're looking at every angle.
I definitely think the direction and the insight, yeah, is worth a lot. I would agree with Councilor Killen on that. Okay, should we go? Anything else, David? Nope. I'm just wondering, okay, let's go to planning commission proactive items. Jacob?
Yeah, so this is, I think this will be kind of a detailed discussion topic on these to enable the plan commission to talk about their proactive efforts if they so choose. And so now's your chance.
Any updates, Jennifer?
I wasn't at the last planning commission meeting, so I'm not sure if there was any discussion, but the end before that, maybe Francisco taking on chairing the paver project in the plaza and
Hmm.
possibly Scott Jacobson taking on the chair of the vacant storefront or architectural design standards. So I don't know of any movement on them yet, so.
And all 3 of you weren't the planning commission last.
Yeah.
Sorry, I wasn't taking.
That's it?
That sounds a lot better.
Yes, it was.
First time ever I've had a
Detroit.
First time ever I've had a council meeting canceled because of lack of decorum, and it happened this last Wednesday. I was
Not any
like,
Russ's fault.
what?
You're sick.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nope.
So the one thing we talked about is an issue with the ad hoc subcommittees. So that phenomenon became a real subject of discussion with the Parks Commission that resulted into some further research. And now we know that until we know more, we can't have those meetings outside of minutes, public settings, all that stuff. Because for a long time we thought, oh, great, that was a way that the planning commission can be proactive on their own and come back to the main meetings with their stuff. But unfortunately, those assumptions were mistaken.
So even a non-quorum number of members can't meet without video minutes virtual access.
So we need to put time aside during a regular planning commission meeting for.
Or individual research, come back at the regular meetings to discuss as a group.
So it's kind of good, other than the 3115 meetings, which are long past now, thankfully. That not a lot of movement was on those, just to keep us out of potential hot water.
And they weren't multiple groups, multiple people in groups doing
Yeah.
work on the site. It was just one person anyway.
And this was determined off of your research with the Ethics Commission?
Not my research. It had to do with parks, and then the city recorder looked into it, and then they informed us of that.
We have a,
Is it because the planning commission holds a different body than like the parks?
They're treated the same.
They're treated the same.
And basically the crux of the issue is any discussion that could lead or form a decision of the city has to be in a public setting.
Mhm.
Right.
And the Parks Commission makes recommendations to city council.
It's ex parte contact.
They're the same, they're treated the same as the planning commission.
Secret meetings.
And it
Yes,
does, it seems
I
like a
know.
very efficient way to get things done, but a more cynical read might be it's a very efficient way to avoid public records law, so I suspect that's.
Right, and that's ultimately what we're quoting is public records law, so.
Thank you for bringing that up. I forgot about
coming
that.
up on November 18th, we worked with the Oregon's got the Government Ethics Commission to do a training on that subject, so everybody can get information.
And that will be at the rec center like it was last time, more than likely, to facilitate all the boards and commissions and all of us. Yeah.
So Kathy will be putting out information, okay, great. I think she already has sent out.
Yeah.
We had a save the date type thing. that
Oh,
came
good,
out.
okay,
Yeah, yeah. So,
yeah, not the best news for the proactive items, though.
No,
I can also share on the contribution of the Urban Renewal Agency has a project in it to do some work in the plaza. It's not a near term, it's more of a longer term project to fund, not all of the paving, or whatever the design might come out to be, but it's
Well, who actually,
contemplated, it was contemplated already. They had funding.
cause I think that's a great idea. It's the
who
inside,
actually
right?
makes the
Inside
decision?
track.
Well, you're gonna need the county, because it's the county's property, they need to buy off on it. And then the ultimate decision, the modification of this property, because it's a designated landmark or official historic structure, would be the Historic Landmarks Commission. In other words, the Planning Commission. And, you know, there's the paving question. In my opinion, the accessibility of the plaza should be improved. Just, you know, and I've said this before, and I'll keep saying it, you know, from my window, seeing people with wheelchairs struggle up there, it's like, well, you know, and accessibility, I think, could be incorporated. And then there's some of the other questions. You know, what about these trees? Do they stay? Do they go? You know, there's some things like that too.
Well, and what's the talk originally, cause I know you would discuss this, to do brick on the inside parking loop? Or is that something else that we were discussing? Where did I hear that from?
About the rows,
You talked about paving the plaza and selling pavers. I did have a conversation with County Commissioner Garrett and with Magruder. They at least gave me the go ahead to at least explore the possibility that they could get behind it. They want
Great.
more information, so. like
Actually,
they-
Jennifer brought a great picture from, I'm not sure what year it was,
Oh, that,
but years
Yeah, we
ago
have-
where.
The
I
Historical
won't use
Society
the-
has some
I
original.
won't use the
different.
CR,
It shows that there's been a lot of it.
Basically had sidewalks.
yep,
Yeah.
yeah, I seen that.
Whatever.
Yes, now I remember, now I recall what it was. Now,
and it would
yes.
be a lot more accessible. if it was
I mean, it looked
We can
great.
mimic that original look. If there's
didn't
any
have-
downside, it'd be people that are upset about the trees, so.
It didn't have trees.
Yeah, it had yew trees.
The trees.
It did not have
It didn't have yew trees?
smaller.
They're bushes, yeah.
Yeah, they're yew, there's a yew.
Trees.
Yep.
They're like a bush like
Well, they
tree.
sure look like a.
On the roof.
Where did you-
I think they were yew. I think they're used.
Rubbery.
I think they're used shrubbery. To
Shrubbery.
be honest with you, I
That is
think
not a tree.
those in the old picture are yew trees. They're a shrub, but they're called yew.
You get a view of the courthouse much better.
When we're talking pavers, are we talking about just like the sidewalks or are we talking paving that?
No, we're talking like sell bricks and people's
Just the
names on them
sidewalks
to
or-
fund.
Like
the-
a splash pad.
The whole thing.
See, I would have to be convinced, cause
You want grass there. still.
yeah, I don't like that idea.
Weird with no grass.
Well, you look at all the other places with pavers. How many of the pavers do you look at downtown with names on them, or you go in the library now, it has names of all the donors? How often does somebody look at that? It's just,
And see, I like from the accessibility part of it. I kind of like the idea of having full sidewalks.
I think part of the issue is also that. Given that we're going to be using the Central Plaza for for at least one large public event, at least 1 month out of the year. I don't know how you deal with. The current grass situation and have it be accessible because it just gets too muddy. for me.
That grass will be completely dead.
It's a way of putting the project forward when we have no money.
Oh, yeah.
So the pavers pay for
Yeah, that's
the,
also
and
true.
who doesn't wanna own a brick with their name on it in Halloween Town?
That's true.
That was the. Means to the end was, okay, we need to improve the plaza and we have no money.
And there, this is a very preliminary concept, so whether, it's 100% pavers or 25% pavers, that's all stuff that's, nothing settled, just the idea is to improve the surface and accessibility
Yes.
because of the events that we have.
But to Jennifer's point about, or point, but just the reality of no money. And who is it that goes and other than getting the donations and buying the bricks or whatever? Is that the county money, city money, combination thereof, or from a budget standpoint, or what?
Yes, no, maybe, it's a good
Yeah.
question.
Grants.
Yeah.
Determined.
Yeah, it could be,
Good question.
it could be a grant. You never know.
Yeah, could be.
Yeah.
Could be a parks grant, it could be a travel Oregon grant, it could be urban renewal funds could contribute.
Jenny, she's the queen of that.
Travel Oregon, own a piece of Halloween Town.
And it's not like, again, like, it doesn't have to.
I mean, it's also, it's a
We have-
pocket park too, if you wanted to try to get recreation money for it. It's
Pocket Park.
Urban Plaza Park, you could call it a park.
Yeah.
Yeah, could you just be concrete? Some concrete in there.
Yeah.
But part of it's,
It's gotta be an option.
There's no concrete.
if you look at the old photos, you have this square, this rectangle with rounded corners, the central, and there was an X shape.
Yes, it was.
And part of that is to restore that shape. Because that was the original design, and that design was designed in conjunction with the courthouse. So it's really, yeah, exactly, and it's an architectural extension of it.
You're driving up to the manor.
And the weird sinuous thing that's in there now really doesn't honor that original design.
You can go out in the park.
Hmm?
You can go out in the park.
Good.
Or something.
Yeah, it could be relocated, yeah.
To the playground area or something.
I personally think what we have now has served its purpose. It used to have little trinkets and
Yeah, it's
things.
all gone.
It's all gone. It's just, I wouldn't think it would be. I wouldn't say not worth it to move it, but it's.
It's not
I'd
as-
like to see something similar to what was originally there. Like you say, it was, the plaza was designed by the original designer of the courthouse. It was meant to show off the courthouse.
Yep.
That circle right in the middle used to be a fountain. Used to have a little gate around it. It was beautiful at one time.
Yeah. I think getting back to something like that would be really cool. And help us solve the accessibility problem.
And again, there was access points from all four sides and.
So, as far as proactive items, me and Jennifer are part of the economic feasibility study for our area here yesterday. Dan showed up too.
A little calculation wrong on my calculator.
But in
Calendar.
that discussion was, and I know, I talked to Jacob and Jenny, and I know our next meeting is very packed with policy decisions. But the parking that got brought up and the policies that were alleviated in downtown Vancouver, which was brought up by Philip, and allowed that area to grow, I think is one of those discussion items that we need to have together and get really proactive on that. and moving forward because we do have, we had a really nice proposal on a building. And we have, a lot of people interested that are gonna be wanting to talk to us moving forward about projects on our waterfront. So we should have some ideas and what other cities are doing and, and that's what I'm just proposing, is moving that forward. We have a bunch of available lands as far as by the stairs, there's a big, we're part of development. We have another lot behind the old gym of the old school. City owns, which is, I'm not an engineer, but I know there's at least 12 parking spots there that could be created very easily. I would add to this downtown area, because I think any bit of parking that, and that's not even 2 blocks away. I think that should count in the downtown district. I think whatever we can add over there, knowing that maybe we could build a parking garage at some point in time by the stairs to the left of it. And you'll see that pathway meandered out further than it needed to be. It could have been a big parking area there. Those are the type of ideas I want to sit down and talk about that are relatively cheap in the scope of work.
It's not bad for downtown that you have to park somewhere and walk past a bunch of businesses to get to where you want to go.
But I would hate to see a parking restriction hold up projects that are really viable to our downtown. I mean, and there's a local guy who's already drawn up one, and we can't be flexible. Not that it should matter, but if we can't work with somebody who's already invested in our city time and time again, and it's proven to. Him and his dad. Both.
At our last joint meeting, we talked about maybe some simple short-term fixes like changing alignment of parking from parallel to diagonal, things like that. Has there been any more thought or discussion on that?
Yeah, and that step came up really quick, so it was just me throwing my ideas down. And the only movement from that meeting has been a discussion with that Sorensen property that Rick's been talking about. So at the end of this year, it's at the end of the 2-year strategic plan that we've had. And for the remainder of the year, I have these code amendments I've been working on. And I gotta get that done.
Yep.
I spent a lot of late nights here in December and January, like the day of the Christmas party here. I stayed several hours late and did that a lot back then. So one, I wouldn't have that encumbrance in the summer when I like to take time off, and just so I knew it would be done. There's been some delays, like the council meeting that didn't happen before. So we're gonna have a lot of meetings in November, but that stuff needs to get done. And it's what we set out to do in the strategic plan. So in my mind, we get that stuff done, the strategic plan is over, then we reassess what we want to do, what we want to look at ahead. And the parking thing, because of this infrastructure being in place and the other things happening, is certainly something we want to start looking closer at. Engineering has provided a document that shows the inventory of what we have. It's possible that we can look at all the parcels in the old Riverfront district here and try to determine some type of, what kind of parking, what amount of parking do we think we need in this area based on what we have? And that'll help us make decisions like, okay, well, how much parking do we want for the Halloween town event? And then, okay, how much is within this inventory and how much do we need elsewhere? I think that's going to feed into some of the decisions for the veneer property. It's, how much land do we want to hold to the side for parking for those events, in the short term. So very important stuff, but it's going to come down to that strategic planning in the next calendar year for everything going forward.
So the Sorensen property that Jacob's talking about is, there's one parcel at Old Portland Road and Fifth Street. Is privately owned. Other than that, that whole inside, the very back corner, which is owned by Dillard Estate. But that whole area down in there is all city right of way, other than that one parcel. I'm like, why couldn't we just put some storm down in there and create a ton of parking? Even if we had to lift that storm out. I don't see why we couldn't. It would be relatively cheap. And I think, you know, so that was an idea, and I don't think there's a lot of other infrastructure in there that would. That is for development anyhow. I think.
Yeah, there is some zoning implications, but you know, one way around that is just dedicated O's right away and call street parking.
Yep.
I should mention too, to your comment. Yesterday at this meeting, it was the technical advisory committee meeting for the economic opportunities analysis. Parking downtown came up and we talked about parking management plan. And there was a brief discussion between Jenny and our Department of Land Conservation and Development rep about potential funding for a parking management plan. And that's, you know, how do you manage the parking that you have? So there's the equation is how much do you have, how much do you think you need, and then how do you maximize what you have?
But and moving forward, we as decision makers, because we're both quasi judicial, have the ability to come up with something that makes sense. And I think it should be a huge meeting and it should have public input. And I think, you know, as far as development is concerned, what other cities have done, Philip's the one who brought it to our attention, how big.
In Spokane or somebody recently just get rid of all the parking requirements, some major.
Yeah, and I don't know, but this would be, you know, any good for.
Like that was the problem. We were considering that one property is the code itself.
Yeah. It says like have X much parking.
Yeah.
It was such a deviation from what the code was that we just couldn't really get to that. And it was like we talked about, it was an amazing, you know, looking project.
Yeah, just a variance for 50 some spaces.
Right. No, that's what I'm saying.
But
You
like,
could variance it, but you could change the code.
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, you could become more lenient,
Yes,
sure,
I like that.
yeah.
I mean, the bottom line is 3 counselors can make any decision. That's the bottom line, the way our, you know, charter is. You know, will it get public pushback? Could, but they could make decisions next meeting.
I
Trump,
think that's.
Trump over everything.
No, I think our feeling from the planning commission on that particular project was a variance that big was not something that was in scope for us. That had to be, you know, city council acting in their capacity as people who can actually do things to get their hands into the code. That's not what we do. We apply the code.
Yeah.
And, you know, applying the code for that big a variance, just, we couldn't close the gap.
But I think we can,
You can change.
we together can look at it and make sense of what makes sense for our area.
And that goes into strategic plan, because our 2-year strategic plan ends this calendar year. Well, that brings us to January and on. What our goals are.
Jacob is begging us to just wait until January, February.
Yeah, well, no, that's strategic.
I hear you.
I mean, yeah, I am trying to get, I'm
That
Hustle
strategic
mode.
plan, we had high priority, medium priority, you know, and this kind of in the queue. And that's what Jacob's talking about, is we get to revisit that, because we been a couple of years. And we can move those. If we have some information. You know, we can put it high priority
sure.
right away.
A recent problem and probably a potential very soon future problem.
Yeah.
Time to do it is before we develop the waterfront.
Yes,
Because
that's why I'm trying to get.
where it's problematic is the residential that we already have down here.
Yes.
Otherwise, businesses, I think, could deal with
When people,
on-site parking, but when you have residences already down here and they can't accommodate the parking now.
People want. to
Would-
park near where
We
they
need to get
live.
it fixed
would
before.
you guys be opposed to, like, after our next meeting, because I know it's policy and I heard Jacob's done a lot of work. But after that, just shortly after having a meeting just strictly on that, a joint meeting, I think is a really good idea in January. Construction is gonna be really close. I mean, we're looking, they're probably straggling to February, maybe March to tie up the loose ends, but they are relatively on schedule for a project this size.
Well, if I recall right, there were different restrictions for the historical district and the waterfront wasn't all in part of that, right? So there was some gray area there that I think needs to be further looked at
Yep.
too, because that was another reason is some of the waterfront would be excluded from some of those rules, was my understanding.
Existing buildings.
Yeah, so
Existing buildings.
the built out portion of the riverfront district has a lot of exceptions, like your abutting on street parking can count towards the off-street parking requirement. And then buildings that cover more than 50% of the lot are exempt. And that was the issue that, you know, this grant proposal we had is they could, and they're seeking that exemption now by rebuilding the existing building without it not being a building. Yeah, so one wall at a time, but it stays a building,
Right.
so they can get that exception. Now, this, which is basically virgin property, they would basically have to meet the standard. However, because when we created the zoning district, flexibility was a huge component of it. And so there's this relief valve in the law that says, okay, well, we have our basic rules, but we can massage those with the development agreement to look at each development on a case by case basis.
It warms my heart to feel that those guys said, all right, we're gonna go this route. We're gonna remodel this building. And that's unfortunate, that code that they had to go through a 2-3 month process here, because you guys know when they approached you. That because of code, they had to go a different route, probably spend a little bit more money to get the same end result.
Not the same, but
Well, kind of.
something.
Well, the
Kind
reason
of.
I brought that up was just because you're commenting on the waterfront, so that is gonna be a little bit trickier because of those zoning differences and stuff, so.
And that was brought up
Still-
also,
still
and
priority though.
that was brought up in our meeting too, is that was just looking at how do we expedite for businesses and moving forward to and building permits and timelines and stuff like that. So, and it's always been an issue, and we'll have that further discussion maybe jointly too. I don't know. I know it's something the city council definitely needs to address with the council.
So then maybe on the December joint meeting, we just have an item to discuss a potential special joint meeting in
Yes.
January or early in 25.
February.
Early 25, depending on the.
Valentine's Day, let's just go ahead and say.
We've been there on Valentine's Day many times.
I do have a question that's kind of related, but not really at all. Is there even a decent bit of vandalism down on the property? It seems like some of the lights that they're doing along the walkway.
The lights have been an
globe
issue.
in, or like the globe on them, and then they're buffed. I was walking the dogs the other day, and I was like, there's glass all over the thing, and there's glass up in the columns.
And we even wrapped them up like mummies and zip tied them, and they still went through the process
I
of.
thought it was silly putting them in so early.
So, yes, that is, yeah,
Like I said, that had anything to do with what we're talking about.
Yeah.
I just noticed it, and it's like,
yeah,
it's terrible.
it is absolutely terrible.
This isn't-
Me too.
Sorry about that.
People wonder why it's taking forever. I'm gonna redo things.
But it's coming along. The asphalt out front and that, you look out front, looks great. It's coming along, so. Any other, anybody have any topics they wanna? Now's the time. If you have any ideas? Okay, well. with
I like,
that,
I like the square better now, so let's.
it does look good, doesn't it?
It's
They
more
did a good job.
cohesive rather
Yeah.
than
Yeah,
stuff.
it makes sense. Yes, it's got a theme.
Yeah,
Yep.
I was.
Yep.
I've been very impressed with
Yeah,
Things that have been going up and these,
yep.
Look at the stage.
right?
You know, I
I
mean,
like the way that they turned it.
I think the bottom line is everybody gets in fear of change, including myself. You know what I mean? And you know, and it's kind of ridiculous. And then when you see what's happening, it's very professional and it's looking good out there. So,
I'm really impressed.
yep,
If you like it at now, you'll have to see it at night, because it's.
it's illuminated. Yeah.
Theatrical show that they put on.
Yeah, you were supposed to text me about that the other day.
Text you?
She said, she didn't text me about it. Brittany said, I texted Jeff.
All she did was say, can you please ask Russ? That's all she said. I thought she had your phone number. We've been talking about the alien stuff and a whole bunch of stuff.
Well, my suspicion is that as people see this, yeah, there'll be some people who just continue to be pissed,
Yeah,
but I think a
so-
lot of people will.
Well, and I think
Shut
that's
up.
it. You know, here's what I think. I think. And I'm gonna speak openly and honestly right here, right now. I think people are fickle about this whole project going on down here. 4 years ago, they said we'd never get anything done. Now that we're deep into it, we've heard about all the little issues. And every little thing, these same people that were saying we'd never do it. And now that we're right in the heart of it, where we can't stop and it's gonna take time to wrap it up. Closing a project is never easy. That is this size, especially when you have so many unknowns. But, I mean, it's getting accomplished. It's gonna benefit our downtown stores. This Halloween town and all these tents set up that are blocking some of the parking are gonna benefit our downtown stores. And that was brought up yesterday also, that we don't show the Holton District enough love. You know, so. I know there's a lot going on down here, but they're gonna benefit in the long run. And Phil even said our property values are all going up. That's why we're invested here. And he's got 2 buildings down here, and that's what he stated. So, yeah, I just want to throw that out there because this project should never be political, ever. This has had a ton of public outreach. Jacob, Jenny, you want to speak on how much public outreach it's had? It was 2 meetings before I even became mayor.
My time,
And that was 9 years ago.
Planning
8 years
charrette.
ago.
on the decade.
Yep, so,
I mean, when I started here, they were talking about rezoning it to allow the expansion of downtown.
That's 15 years.
And that was 2009, I think.
so,
And back then, it was interesting. You know, back then Boise still owned it. And they were really paranoid about what we were doing. They had a land use planner kind of sniff around and asked about it. So it's just remembering that and seeing where it is now. It's
pretty amazing, yeah. Lots of people inquiring about it too, from big boats to the investor of Very Global was downtown eating yesterday and had a bunch of questions for me. And he was down at the Big River Tap Room having a beer and was gonna come up and have some Thai food. It was really cool to meet him. I had no idea, from Michigan. Yeah, so. Yep. All right. Anything else?